What do you know about you? Let's start from there.
Word on the street is that Isaiah Chance Jr., one of the dudes accused of blasting Julio, is singing like a bird to the cops. And he ain't just spilling tea on the Julio hit, he's supposedly dropping dirt that could link Julio straight to Jaydayoungan. Cops already pulled Isaiah in for questioning, and that convo kicked off with a simple bombshell. What do you know about Julio? That's when everything started unraveling. Now, at first, it sounds crazy to think Isaiah knows things the feds don't. But here's the kicker. Julio and Jaydayoungan had some nasty beef going way back. Julio was one of the loudest voices clowning Jaydayoungan after he got taken out, which had everybody asking if he was more than just a keyboard warrior. Did he actually have a hand in it? This mess just got a whole lot deeper. Isaiah is definitely talking, and if he's got anything that connects Julio to Jaydayoungan's murder, the whole case could blow up in a second. But what's the angle here? Why is Isaiah risking it all? Simple. He's trying to save his own neck. Dude got bagged and might be staring down a life sentence, so he'll probably say whatever it takes to look less guilty. Snitching on Julio could flip the game in his favor, especially if he ties Julio to another body. That's a big play in the streets, and Isaiah knows it. This kind of move ain't new either. Remember King Von? The streets called him a walking graveyard. And even after he died in 2020, Chicago PD hid his name in 2021, saying he was the trigger man in the 2012 slaying of model McCambry. That's how it goes in this world. Bodies drop, names get dragged, and the dead or locked up catch blame for years. Now, when it comes to Isaiah, nothing's official yet. But in cases like this, once somebody starts chirping, it's like a house of cards falling fast. Julio could end up catching blame for another body, even from the grave. But let's get real. Did Julio actually pull the strings on that hit? And is Isaiah Chance Jr. sitting on something that could really stick to Julio's name? Time to break down the wild beef between Julio and Jaydayoungan and figure out if Julio had his hands dirty in Jay's death. See, this wasn't just petty name-calling. The drama between Julio and Jay was tangled up in that brutal Jacksonville war between ATK and KTA crews. It was a hot mess that pulled in anybody close. Even though Jaydayoungan wasn't a Florida boy, he stepped right into the crossfire just by who he was cool with. Jay was rolling tight with young Gene Ace, who happened to be Julio's biggest enemy. Just that bond made Jay a target in Julio's eyes, like he picked his side and chose wrong. And when Jay started popping off online, tossing insults in his tracks and mocking Julio's dead homies, he lit the fuse for all-out war. Julio wasn't about to let that slide. He said Jay should have stayed out of business that wasn't his, and since Jay fired first, Julio felt it was open season to clap back hard. Then July 2022 came, and the unthinkable happened. Jaydayoungan was shot down and left for dead. The second the news hit, everybody started pointing fingers at Julio Foolio, wondering if he ordered the hit, or worse, pulled the trigger himself. It's the kind of street chaos where nobody's safe and revenge never dies. Jaydayoungan's murder still stands as one of the biggest unsolved mysteries haunting hip-hop today. Here's how it all went down. Jay was chilling outside his crib in Bogalusa, Louisiana, just vibing on the front lawn with his pops, when things turned deadly in seconds. Out of nowhere, 3 dudes hopped out of a black truck parked close by and started creeping up like they were on a mission. Jay and his dad tried to make a break for it, sprinting towards the front door, but then, boom, 2 more shooters popped out from the side, like it was a whole ambush straight out of a movie. Bullets started flying everywhere as Jay's dad pulled his piece and tried to blast back to protect his son. But Jay caught at least 8 shots and hit the ground hard. They rushed him to the hospital, but the injuries were too much, and Jay didn't make it. His pops took a couple slugs in the arm, but somehow survived the chaos. What's insane is that it's 2025 now, and still nobody's been cuffed. Not a single name, not a single charge. Just silence. Cops swear it was a targeted hit, but there's no hard proof or real answers. And that's why people think Isaiah Chance Jr. might be sitting on secrets that could crack this wide open. Jay was already dealing with a mountain of problems before he got gunned down. He'd just beaten a gun case, and the streets were watching his every move. To make it even worse, he and his girl had lost their newborn baby just weeks before he got killed. The pain was unreal. There's chatter that Jay's beef with Florida crews like Julio's KTA might have played into his murder, but nobody's ever dug up proof connecting Foolio or KTA directly to the hit. Yet the ATK versus KTA war is still raging like nothing ever changed. The bodies kept piling up, and the tension in the southern rap scene was hotter than ever. Jay's death didn't just end a life, it poured gasoline on a feud already spiraling out of control. And it wasn't long before Julio's name got stamped on the list of those claimed by this ruthless gang war. Now let's break down exactly how Julio met his fate, and what role Isaiah Chance Jr. played in this jaw-dropping setup. Because this story is straight out of a nightmare. Julio got smoked right after his own birthday party, which is already insane enough, but once you hear every gritty detail, you'll see why folks are still talking about it like it's legend. 2 years after Jaydayoungan's murder, around June 2024, Foolio hit 28 and decided to wild out with a birthday blowout down in Tampa, Florida, just a few hours from his hometown, Jacksonville. And for some reason, Julio was feeling bold. He blasted his party location all over Instagram, even telling fans to slide into his DMs for the addy. That's crazy. Julio threw a pool party at an Airbnb, but the bash got way too turned. Cops rolled through and shut it down in no time. Instead of calling it a night, Julio and his crew decided to hit another spot to keep the vibes alive, completely unaware the ops were already closing in. That's when Isaiah Chance Jr. stepped onto the stage. Isaiah, along with his girl Alicia, had been tailing Julio's every move the whole night. Police say they tracked him to not just one, but 2 different locations, like they were glued to his bumper. And each time Julio stopped, Isaiah was on his phone, tapping in with the hitters and feeding them the drop on where Julio was headed next. The ops kept creeping, staying low-key by parking across the street to keep eyes on Julio without tipping him off. Then Isaiah and Alicia swung through the hotel lot one last time, like they were clocking in for a final check, making sure Foolio was really posted up there. Moments later, 3 masked shooters jumped out of another whip and made a beeline for Julio's ride. They didn't give a single warning or chance to duck. They unleashed a hail of bullets, turning the car into a war zone. Everyone inside got sprayed, but Julio was the only one who didn't crawl out alive. By the next morning, the internet exploded with rumors. Word on the block was that hitters might have slid down from Jacksonville just to catch Julio slipping after his own party. And right away, cops were convinced this wasn't some random drive-by. This was a straight-up targeted hit. Things got even crazier when Jaydayoungan Ace jumped on the situation, dropping diss track after diss track like he'd been waiting for the green light. He released his first fiery track literally hours after Julio's death hit the headlines. Then, days later, he dropped another banger called Game Over, throwing more gas on the fire. But it wasn't just him. Spinabenz and Wapa Wit Da Chopa piled on, releasing a ruthless track titled Foolio Dead that had everybody talking. That's the ugly reality of this Jacksonville beef. It's deep, dirty, and full of old scars. What's even wilder is that many of these guys were tight back in the day, rolling together like brothers. Maybe that's why Jaydayoungan Ace said he shed a tear when he heard Julio got smoked. Though, honestly, it's hard to believe with all that venom in the air. Once the streets got twisted up in the drama, friendships shattered, lines got drawn, and bodies started dropping left and right. It didn't take long for the case to heat up. After all, this was a brazen hit right outside a Holiday Inn with cameras everywhere. So the feds had a mountain of footage to dig through. Just 3 days after Foolio got gunned down, Jacksonville police pulled over an SUV for speeding, and they had no clue they were about to crack the whole case wide open. Behind the wheel of that SUV was an 18-year-old kid named Sean Gathright from Oxford, Mississippi, and that's where everything got wild. Cops say Sean was one of the 3 shooters who ambushed Foolio in Tampa, but at first, they were clueless. They only stopped him for flying down the street too fast. When they searched the ride, they uncovered a strap, a stash of shrooms, and ammo. Still, they didn't realize they were sitting on the key to Julio's murder. It all clicked when Sean started spilling his guts in the interrogation room. The day after Sean's bust, police pulled up heavy on Isaiah and his girl Alicia, rolling deep with assault rifles and surrounding their crib like it was a movie scene. After a tense 20 minutes, Isaiah and Alicia finally stepped out and surrendered to the squad waiting outside. Both of them got slapped with first-degree charges involving a firearm and conspiracy to commit murder. According to investigators, Isaiah and Alicia weren't the ones who squeezed the triggers, but they were the eyes on Julio that night, tailing him from spot to spot and feeding his location to Sean and his two cousins, who were both deep in the beef with Julio and itching to settle the score. Cops said it was Isaiah's play-by-play updates that made the hit so smooth and deadly. After cops bagged Isaiah and Alicia, they turned their sights on the other two shooters, Davion and Rashad Murphy, cousins straight out of Jacksonville who repped the 1200 crew. Isaiah was rolling with ATK, same crew as Jaydayoungan Ace, and ATK and 1200 were locked in tight like brothers in arms. That made Julio a walking target for Davion and Rashad because he was on the opposite side of that vicious street war. But here's what most folks don't know. The hit on Julio went way deeper than random gang beef. This mess got personal, fueled by a shooting years earlier that flipped everything upside down. To really get it, you gotta talk about Kenny K, a name that set this entire chain reaction in motion. Kenny K was Julio's close ally in 6 Block, and his move lit the fuse on this blood feud. Back in 2018, at a packed high school football game, 6 Block member Kenny K allegedly got pressed by a 1200 affiliate named Spaz, along with Kenny's homie Lil Bibby. Kenny wasn't having it. He pulled his piece and let off shots right there in front of a massive crowd, hitting Spaz and 2 others. Spaz died right there on the field, and the whole city felt the shockwaves. Kenny got slapped with a second-degree murder charge, but thanks to scared witnesses refusing to testify, he skated with a plea deal for manslaughter and came home 5 years later. When he got out, Julio Foolio embraced him like family. They were inseparable, even showing up together for a no-jumper interview like they owned the room. But Julio and 6 Block never let Spaz's death fade. They kept clowning his name, tossing disses in tracks and online. Then it got even nastier when someone filmed themselves standing on Spaz's grave taunting his memory. Nobody could confirm who did it, but the streets were buzzing that it was Julio himself behind the stunt, throwing gasoline on an already blazing fire. Spaz's death hit 1200 hard, but it cut especially deep for Rashad and Davion. Reports say Spaz was Rashad's little brother and Davion's cousin, so when Julio got dropped, plenty of folks thought maybe Jaydayoungan Ace himself called the hit. But truth is, Rashad and Davion already had plenty of reasons to want Foolio gone. They were chasing revenge for Spaz's murder, and nothing was gonna cool them down. But Isaiah Chance Jr. had his own beef simmering too. He used to be tight with Ace's brother, 23, who got caught in a brutal ambush back in 2018. 3 people got sprayed up in traffic, and Ace was the only one who crawled out alive. Ever since that day, Julio and 6 Block wouldn't stop clowning 23, especially on Julio's diss track, When I See You, where he went straight for the jugular. That track alone kept the hatred burning hot for Isaiah, Rashad, and Davion. All 3 had personal scores to settle with Julio. What really had everybody scratching their heads, though, was Sean Gathwright's role in this twisted puzzle. Unlike the rest, Sean was from Mississippi, not Jacksonville, and had no obvious ties to the beef. So rumors started swirling fast. Was Sean just a hired gun brought in to do the dirty work for a bag? People were saying he might have been a paid shooter with no real skin in the game. But here's where things took a wild turn. When cops grabbed Sean, they tore apart his car and his crib, and what they found blew the case wide open. Shell casings matching a whole different shootout. That shootout went down in October 2023, when Julio almost lost his life grabbing a vape at a gas station. Ops rolled up on him out of nowhere and lit up the spot. Julio survived by the skin of his teeth, and later told Say Cheese TV that he'd heard whispers there was a bounty on his head, somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000, turning him into a walking target every time he stepped outside. Julio Foolio had already dodged a few brushes with death before this final hit, and fans were starting to wonder what was really going on. How did his ops keep pulling up on him like they had his every move on speed dial? That's when the backdoor whispers started swirling heavy, with people speculating that someone close to Julio was feeding his location straight to the opposition. Right after Julio's murder, the internet lit up. with a lot of eyes turning to a dude named Missile as the possible snake in the grass. Missile used to hang around both Julio and Jaydayoungan Ace's circles, so on paper, he looked like a prime suspect for leaking info. But folks who really knew the streets said Missile was neutral, never picked a side, and didn't bang with any set. Plus, Missile actually caught bullets alongside Julio that night, and they'd been tight since they were kids, which made the rumors shaky. But then the paperwork started hitting the net, and it painted a way uglier picture, like someone in Julio's circle really was dropping his location. Investigators found out Sean Gathright had been texting a woman, asking her to hit up a guy who was literally chilling with Julio right before the hit. And right when Isaiah and Alicia started tracking Julio's every move on IG, Sean suddenly stopped texting, like they had everything they needed to set the plan in motion. Cops said Isaiah and Alicia rolled up in Tampa the day before Julio's birthday bash, scouting out the scene while Sean, Rashad, and Davion followed in another whip. When police ran their plates, it lined up perfectly. The crews dipped out of Jacksonville at the same time Julio started flexing his party plans online. After the ambush went down, one of the cars sped straight back to Jacksonville, like they were never even there, leaving Julio's lifeless body behind and a mountain of questions for everyone else. The other car dipped down to Polk County trying to stay under the radar, but cops were on it, tracing both whips back to addresses tied to Sean's mom and another woman living with Rashad Murphy's brother. And even though Sean Gathright's full role in the chaos was still fuzzy, police said he personally squeezed the trigger twice on Julio, sealing his fate in cold blood. After the hit, Sean ditched his ride at a relative's crib to keep the heat off him. Then, Davion Murphy chauffeured him back to Jacksonville, like it was just a normal night on the town. Meanwhile, cops say Rashad, Isaiah, and Alicia hopped into an Uber and rolled back to Jax too, like it was nothing but a quick trip. But it wasn't just another night. It was the night that ended Julio's life and blew the doors off a years-long beef. Since that night, things have spiraled straight down for everyone involved. All 5 suspects tied to Julio's murder, Sean, Isaiah, Alicia, Rashad, and Davion, are locked up tight with no bond, sitting in pretrial detention and waiting to face first-degree murder charges that could end their lives behind bars. The clock is ticking. Sean, Isaiah, and Rashad are set to stand trial in April 2026, and Alicia's trial is penciled in for August 2025, unless it gets pushed back even further. The last piece of the puzzle, Davion Murphy, is staring down extra charges too, including multiple counts of attempted murder, making his situation even messier. For now, their world is nothing but steel bars, cold walls, and legal prep for the kind of trials that'll have the whole rap world watching. Prosecutors have already come out swinging, saying they're going straight for the death penalty for Sean, Isaiah, and Rashad, which means even if the needle doesn't come, they're guaranteed to spend the rest of their lives rotting in a cell. If Alicia goes down for this, she might not face the needle, but since she's still charged with first-degree murder, she's looking at an automatic life sentence if the jury hits her with a guilty verdict. And when you stack that with the gang connections, the careful planning of the ambush, and how aggressive prosecutors have been talking in the media, let's be real, the odds of all 4 landing life sentences are sky high if the charges stick. Right now, there's no rock-solid proof that any of these suspects have started snitching or flipping on each other, but don't get it twisted. The signs are there that law enforcement is working overtime to crack someone. One of the biggest hints? Every suspect already has their own defense lawyer. And when each person's got separate counsel, it usually means they're all watching their own backs, ready to do whatever it takes to save themselves, even if that means spilling secrets on their co-defendants. Prosecutors love to play that angle too. In big, high-profile cases like this one, they almost always try to get co-defendants to turn on each other. And the more bodies on the table, the bigger the incentive. When people are staring down a death sentence or a guaranteed life in a concrete box, the pressure gets crushing fast. That kind of heat can make even the hardest folks crack, offering up details just to grab a plea deal and dodge spending the rest of their days locked away. Or worse, strapped to a gurney in a death chamber. Some folks are whispering that Alicia might have already spilled some tea, but let's keep it real. Right now, it's all street talk with zero receipts. There's been no official word from prosecutors, no leaked paperwork, nothing solid to prove anyone's flipped and gone state's witness yet. But given everything we know about Isaiah, a lot of people are betting he'll be the first one to crack and start naming names in the Jaydayoungan case. Even if Isaiah wasn't directly involved in Jaydayoungan's murder, there's a good chance he knows key details about the people who did. And with the case ice cold for a minute now, investigators would jump on any crumb he gives up. When it comes to Julio's murder, cops are grinding day and night, putting heavy pressure on these suspects to flip on each other. And with the way this case is stacked, it wouldn't be a shock if someone folds to save their own skin. If you're into these wild stories and want more deep dives like this, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next one.